Welcome to Public Health on Call, a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, where we bring evidence, experience, and perspective to make sense of today's leading health challenges. If you have questions or ideas for us, please send an email to publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes.
This is Lindsay Smith-Rogers. Natasha Dartigue is the public defender for the state of Maryland, running an office that provides defense in 90% of Maryland criminal trials. But her mind isn't just on representing people accused of crimes. It's on prevention. She speaks to Dr. Josh Sharfstein about her perspective on young people in trouble. Let's listen.
Natasha Dartigue, thank you very much for joining me on Public Health on Call. You are the Maryland Public Defender.
Yes, and thank you for having me.
So let's start with what the Office of the Public Defender does.
So the Office of the Public Defender is charged with defending indigent individuals when they are facing criminal charges. We represent individuals throughout the state of Maryland, so in all 23 jurisdictions and Baltimore City. To do so, I have 52 offices throughout the state. So we represent everyone from the beaches to the shores and everywhere in between. Throughout those offices, I also have 11 specialty divisions, which includes juvenile justice, forensics, social work, decarceration initiative, just to name a few.
And how many lawyers work for the office in Maryland?
Currently, we are around a little short of 600 lawyers, definitely not enough. We are in a current hiring cycle. Altogether, I have a staff of almost 1,000 individuals.
Wow. And how many people in Maryland are you representing?
So the Office of the Public Defender represents about 90% of individuals who are charged with criminal offenses, thousands and thousands of individuals every year.
So that's a lot of experience looking at the criminal justice system, including looking at the flaws of the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are, in fact, the largest criminal defense firm in the state of Maryland. And when it comes to criminal law, we are the experts.
And so particularly when it comes to young people and their engagement with the criminal justice system, what are the kinds of fundamental challenges that your office sees?
You know, essentially, when you talk about children, we can't talk about it in a vacuum. We have to talk about children in respect to families. And when we talk about families, we have to talk about communities. And what we see, especially about children, they are growing up in communities that are plagued by poverty. They are growing up in communities where they are themselves victims of violence. They're growing up in communities where either one and sometimes both parents are incarcerated. And we know that if you are a child of an incarcerated parent, that increases your likelihood of you yourself falling into that cycle.
And do you see the gaps in the support system for young people in that situation?
I mean, the gaps absolutely exist everywhere. And again, they stem from issues of poverty. You have a lack of adequate housing. You have lack of quality education, no mental health services. You know, children are living in food deserts. All the things that you can have kind of like the perfect storm to create a situation where an individual is in a constant state of living in despair.
So one case at a time, you're representing people in the situation, but then you can start to fill in the bigger picture.
So essentially, yes, we represent one individual at a time, but because we have such a great volume of cases, we essentially have the opportunity many times to be able to address issues that we see on a daily basis that are systemic.
How do you feel when people talk about, for example, the issue of youth crime as purely an issue of, bad kids, for example? There's something wrong with these kids today. Given the breadth of understanding you have from all these cases, how does that land?
it's just fundamentally inaccurate for a sundry of reasons. And I'm speaking to you, doctor, and you know vastly better than I do. But when we talk about just the development of the brain, we're talking about children whose brains are not fully developed, and the human brain does not fully develop until about age 25. You think about that age group from like the 14 to 18, where you also think about the hormones. You think about things that one would do as a teenager to get in trouble. Teenagers are getting in trouble. Part of it is that we're making comparisons based upon our individual experiences as opposed to looking where and how kids are currently living. And then you add the fact that with technology and social media, the impact of all the things that children are experiencing, but also as we are seeing, is also magnified.
So you're seeing these bigger social forces as well as these community level deprivations affecting kids as they're going through the courts. You said that your office tries to do some things about them. Could you give me some examples?
We are fortunate in that we are connected with the community. We also fortunate at the Office of the Public Defender that we have social workers. We have a parental defense team. So we're also able to start certain initiatives that help to address the problems that are happening in the community. So, for example, through our parental defense team, we are working with families, hopefully before they get trapped and begin the cycle in the child welfare system. And some of it is in terms of basic needs that the family may have, some basic support. Sometimes it's just food, sometimes it's clothing, sometimes it's a combination of many, many things. But when you think about children, and I use the Baltimore City example, the shooting that happened in Brooklyn, you have people who are out at a neighborhood event, and you think about the tragedy that happens as a shooting at the neighborhood event. But then when we step back, no services have been offered to that community, no mental health services. So what happens? You have essentially a group of people that have experienced a traumatic event and who also have the need to placate the fears that they have, natural fears. So next time, perhaps they're going to go out to an event, they're going to have that fear and need to protect themselves. What would likely happen? You'll have individuals who may not have armed themselves before will now arm themselves. So this is part of when we talk about what's happening in communities, the vicious cycle that we are not addressing.
And you miss that if you just focus on one defendant at a time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you were telling me about a project that is now underway with the Office of the Attorney General in Maryland.
We have launched a collaboration with the Office of the Attorney General called the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative. And essentially it is a historical partnership between the public defender and the attorney general to address and eliminate the effects of mass incarceration. Part of this collaborative includes our institutions of higher learning, and it also includes approximately 40 community stakeholders. So essentially breaking down the silos, creating partnerships that did not exist before, to really take a fresh and creative approach to address the issue of the mass incarceration.
You're really thinking about prevention rather than just being there when somebody has perhaps already committed a crime or needs a lawyer. I'll just say that.
Oh, absolutely. We essentially, decades upon decades upon decades, have been doing the same thing of locking people up, but essentially never addressing what is it that got them into that particular situation to begin with. People often forget that, in fact, police don't prevent crime. Police respond to crime. So essentially, the increased policing and the increased incarceration is not addressing the issue. We essentially are taking a hard look as to, okay, what is creating the problem so that we don't have situations where people do not feel safe, where children do not feel safe and are now carrying guns. We are trying to address it before it becomes a problem.
If people who are hearing this podcast from around the country are interested in learning more about what public defenders in their areas are doing in this regard? What can they do?
So essentially, we have social media for the Maryland Office of the Public Defender. Our Instagram is Maryland_OPD. We also are on Facebook. We are engaging in the community. We're out in the community, but also each month we put on a legislative briefing to also inform the community. I would say in the respective areas where you are, to Google your Office of the Public Defender, because public defenders, not only in Maryland, but throughout the country, are really engaged with their communities, so you can find out in terms of local events.
Natasha Dartigue, thank you so much for coming to talk about your office and more broadly, what I might call a prevention-oriented and even public health-like approach to violence that you take.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Public Health on Call is a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, produced by Joshua Sharfstein, Lindsay Smith-Rogers, and Stephanie Desmond. Audio production by J.B. Arbogast, Holly Cardinale, Philip Porter, Spencer Greer, and Matthew Martin, with support from Chip Hickey. Distribution by Nick Moran. Production support from Catherine Ricardo. Social media run by Grace Fernandez and Shian Briscoe. If you have questions or ideas for us, please send an email to publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes. Thank you for listening.